Confluence is a word often associated with geography. It is the meeting of two or more bodies of water. The Susquehanna River, one of the oldest existing rivers in the world, is located in northeastern United States. The Susquehanna is 464 miles long and flows through 3 states. It also flows through a small town in northeastern Pennsylvania called Bloomsburg. Working late in his office one night, Randall Presswood, the director of performing arts facilities at Bloomsburg University, had a revelation. Before him stood a blank 7 by 62 foot wall, completely barren, void of any character or apparent purpose to the untrained eye. But Randall saw something else. He saw a giant canvas before him, an incredible opportunity for the world to experience art and connect with each other. This is the story of one giant canvas and 19 artists. This is the story of Confluence.
So when the movement to renovate this facility in 2010, this wall became a big desire on my part to make sure that there was some treatment made to it. Initially, my best thought was to hire someone to come in and create a mural that came from one end of the wall and extended to the other end of the wall and would somehow detail the fact that this is a performing arts facility. We do arts in this facility. I wanted it to be visual. I wanted everybody to see what goes on here when they walk in the building. So I offhandedly remarked about this wall, and their director, Kurecian, decided that this would be a good project for them to attack. We met with a number of people. We're now at a process where we're involved with 19 different artists who are going to work on a project that will in one way or another visualize the imagination that I've had for 20 years and have hoped to see on this wall.
Last year's celebrity artist calendar came out, and we saw Pamela on it. And I was always an old Monty Python fan, and I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. And we were getting involved in our second year, the Susquehanna River Artists, and we were looking to partner more, especially within the local region. And we thought, well, that might be a really good idea. And then the next thing you know, we got in a room, Randall was in there, and we were saying, okay, we'd like to do this, we'd like to do that, we'd like to do this. And one of the things that we really wanted to do is we wanted to expose our artists to a different group, a different market, and that would be the Celebrity Circle members. And we decided, let's have an art show prior to Spamalot. And from that conversation, it led to, this was really, I can't take any credit, it was all Randall's idea. He's like, I'm sick of looking at this wall outside my office. He goes, you think your artists might be interested in creating a piece for us here? And I envisioned something completely different. I envisioned individual pieces by everyone in some sort of show. And he had this grand idea that is now the Confluence. And I approached the Susquehanna River artists in one of our monthly meetings and said, hey, this opportunity is being provided to our group. Are you interested? And that took about 1 second for them to say, yes, we're very much interested.
And once we decide on the shape of the river, okay, whether it's Glen's shape or something similar to that, and we have it broken up into spaces, we could take that whole thing and say start at one end and maybe pick our how we're going to be lined up.
There's, I think, 18 artists or so, or 18 panels, 19 artists working on a piece that represents the Susquehanna River and things that along the river, which runs through this community, and it's a very prominent and important part of the area. As far as recreation, also just its beautiful aspect of this valley. It might be interesting to maybe group people together by color, like who are more colorful, who are the painters who are more colorful, the ceramics such as colorful glazes, and it could morph into something that would be more black and white or sepia tones, and then maybe back into color again. So we could kind of arrange, that might be one of the determining things of who goes next to who, might be the color, and also might be thematic relationships Like if I was doing something with a goddess figure, a sea nymph or something, a water nymph, and then it goes into a fish, and then you might be the next, you might do a figurative thing too that goes into it.
I think I've done some collaborative work with another painter, and I actually collaborated with him for probably 10 years. So I'm a little bit more familiar with collaborating with different artists, having people come in and actually paint over your area, and hopefully, you know, some of the other artists will actually collaborate, since it is a huge collaborative project. So I think just, you know, the scale of it for one is pretty amazing. And you know, originally I think Doug's and my idea was to actually have some kind of a drawing that actually went through the whole thing to begin with, but that never really made it to, so it's going to be more individual artists, I think, creating that. So hopefully the whole thing's going to flow together.
I think it gives all the artists involved a chance to try to work together on a project, which isn't easy to do because everybody has such different styles and different media. And I think we're trying to coordinate things, but it'll be, you know, time will tell how well that works out. I know the Deb Stabley, who is next to me on one side, we're sharing, you know, some ideas and some materials. So hopefully that will give some flow to the two pieces. We'll have to see how that works.
I really liked your idea of having the edges be maybe not so straight up and down, but so that it's has more of a flow to it. The idea of one piece leading into the other, that can work if you want to do that with the person next to you. So I think that the easiest thing to do at this point may be to kind of start to pair up with people.
There's a vast amount of talent in this area. It really is. For how sparsely populated it is, there are a lot of good artists here. I believe Dave Ashby was the first one to introduce this idea. And when it was put out to the group then, I thought it was a great idea, a really fabulous idea. It's not only a collaboration of us as artists, but the Visitors Bureau and the university, and I just think that collaborative efforts are among the best things that we can do as humans. You know, we always tend to excel more if we're working in a team, and I think that holds true to art too.
Well, collaborations are exciting, I think, in general. They're a little scary and intimidating because you don't know exactly what's going to happen because you can't control all aspects of it. Even though we each have our individual panels, I think it's important that they all work as a cohesive group so that the piece reads as an entire scene, and like images bleed into other images, colors connect and relate. And hopefully that's what I see happening. And that's the exciting thing about it too, is it gets you out of your shell. We work in our own individual studios, we have our own ideas and our own way of working, and materials and medias and color palettes we're used to using. So when the person next to you is using a color you're not usually using, it kind of wakes you up a little bit and turns you upside down and thinks, oh, I can work with that, I can go that direction. Or as an imagery that I wouldn't necessarily do, like there's a branch cutting through my piece that wouldn't normally be there, but it is because Dave has a tree next to me, so then I have to incorporate that into my piece. And it makes it a lot more interesting, challenging, and creative.
I think it's really important for artists who typically work alone to work with other artists, get a huge amount of information, of sharing of ideas when you work with other artists. I think that's really helpful for growing oneself as an artist. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get out of it at the beginning, and an artist that works in a completely different medium, they might say something just off the cuff and you think, oh, that makes so much sense to me. And even though they're not a clay artist, clearly that idea comes across in whatever your medium is.
Well, so people, we like kind of this idea of random cuts? Okay.
Oh, fine,
Rather than up and down, straight up and down.
Oh, fine.
And this is a nice idea too. I don't view
like
this
this.
very different ways. Maybe not straight, but they could be these sort of staggered or just different shapes too.
That's easier.
It's been a lot of fun. I mean, as an artist, you're working very solitary all the time, and you're not having to deal with that many people. So yeah, it's been very interesting. There are a lot of strong personalities, but for the most part, I think we all know each other pretty well. We're a community of artists. I've gotten to meet other artists that I didn't know so well, and the meetings, we're learning how to structure. We're learning how to structure, and I think it's been a great learning curve for everybody.
Well, what I was saying, before we take it down, and before we actually cut these out, here, we could have that, we could level this and have exactly where those are going on with a line that goes across, and that would be exactly where the hanger's going to go. On the paper, and then once we cut that out of wood, all we have to do is drill 2 holes in it to go the whole way through, and we'll know exactly where that's going to be level, and then we'll actually even know where the hanger's going to go on the wall then.
Right,
Does that make sense?
Which is crucial information.
I think maybe it's a little bit easier if a few of the core people make some of the basic decisions. We had a couple late meetings where, we were throwing a lot of ideas out, and that's good too. I think they wanted everybody's opinion.
Putting together that many different artists and different medias that they work in, certainly it's somewhat of a clash at some point. I mean, it's not really, I don't know all of them really well. I've only known a couple of them personally, and I've just met most of them. So it's going to be a growing process to get to know them all and break up the cliques that people have. I mean, obviously you sit by the person when you go to these meetings.
At the very beginning, it was very loose, and nobody was really sure what was going on, and we had to kind of rush to kind of even really form the idea, because we knew that the time frame was really tight right from the start. We went back and forth on a lot of different things, and it seemed like every meeting we were working on something completely different. But then it finally started to come together, and once the panels were all cut and people actually had something they could touch and hold to know, okay, this is what I'm working with, then I think it started to really, really meld and form.
What do you want to do? Go back.
When you guys are even at the end, you like another foot this way.
Just get it close.
You need another foot that way? They need to come this way.
I think that's probably about the right.
Did you leave it in the barn? Or very organic.
As a whole in our time right now, arts, especially the physical manual arts, are being lost. So I find it really important, and visual stimulation is just awesome. I mean, it's to walk through that hallway and see this 62-foot piece with 18 different artists and all the talent and time that went into it, I think it'll be really impressive. It's been a fascinating thing to work with that many people in so many different mediums and walks of life. Everybody's got a different viewpoint, but it's been great, and I love the title because it features what we've all tried to strive for, and I think we all are confluing into a beautiful piece. So I think it's going to be a success.
In early February, Spam-A-Lot premieres at the Haas Center. This is the first chance for the public to preview the wall and meet some of the artists of Confluence. Upstairs in the gallery, other pieces of work by artists are on display. The reception is packed, and some artists even sell a few of their pieces.
to steal any thunder from this event that's being sponsored by Otto. However, I just did want to announce, for those of you that don't know the routine of what goes on here, I do curtain speeches, I do gallery talks before the show about about the show that you're about to see. That's a few too many abouts, but nonetheless, edit that, please.
That was a really exciting show. It was nice to get all those artists together and have everybody's pictures up on the wall. It was really cool. And it really kind of started, I think, for a lot of us, really started the energy. The meetings, yeah, we were talking about it and we were getting things moving, and we had a big push to get all the panels cut up and separated and ready to go for people, but that was kind of like, okay, this has started. There are pictures up on the wall of artists, and it's going.
I thought it was lovely. I thought it was elegant. It was way over the top of anything I had planned. It was a real memory for me, and I thought the exhibition looked fabulous in the space. I thought it really was very well done, very professional.
Selling all my art, all 4 pieces that I put in that show, is very unusual, and I can't get a big head about it too much because I know that's not going to happen again real soon. It's nice to know people like what I'm doing. I certainly enjoy putting it out, and whether it means something to me and somebody else sees something into it, that's kind of nice. I had one lady come up to me and absolutely had to buy that piece from me right away and wanted to take it off the wall that night. But it was a good experience.
Dave Stabley, Doug Hopkins, and William Whitmoyer prepare to hang the first pieces for Confluence.
Started.
Actually, stay up. But let's spin him around, please. Guys, let's get on this.
My piece is mostly about, I think, the river, just the movement of the river. It's going to have a lot to do with, fish in the river, just the movement of fish. And have some movement of leaves and trees in the river.
Andrew, you want to come and grab a hold while Doug positions it?
I don't know, half inches? Should be about 3.5 inches there, or should be 30 inches.
Grab a tape measure for you.
So the piece I'm working on now is actually a painting. Even though I feel like I still kind of work in ceramics, so I use the paint heavy, and it's more like a slip or like a layer of glazing on a piece. So I think of paint more as 3-dimensional rather than 2-dimensional in the way I use it.
Can I go faster?
Yeah, change your speed to 2. Physically putting it on the wall became more of a problem than I expected. I knew what the wall was. I knew that it was just a cement structure designed to hold the inside of the auditorium balcony. And, foolishly, what I didn't bring to the forefront of my mind is what's inside that cement pour to make that stand up. Once we laid out this wall and we hung the first piece, we were then committed to the location of where each one of these tiles was going to go. In about 4 instances, I could not get into the wall because of the superstructure behind the wall that was holding up the cement in the original pour. That became an issue. So there was always a fear and a little bit of hope and a luck involved that once I hung that piece that it was going to be straight, that both cleats were leveled on each piece and squared, and it would be hang straight. And secondly, that it would be in the location that it needed to be in with relationship to everything else. I had very few problems with that. So Dave Stabley, who did that initial layout, did a remarkable job in terms of figuring out how to make this happen without having any physical product to work with at the time.
Maybe just cut some of Bill's off the bottom.
Poor Bill. Come down. So we can't come down yet then.
My piece, it has a name, but I don't know how to pronounce it. I looked it up. It's Shawnee for when it thaws. And what I was trying to do is really this is a time of year, you know, in March into April, that the river starts really flowing and, you know, things thaw out, and the river and its tributaries get this like amazing jade green that's just, I don't know, it's mesmerizing for me. I can just stare at it for hours and try to analyze the color. But that's what I'm trying to do with the background of my pieces, kind of mimic that color.
It's a great metaphor using the river for the theme, because it's part of life, ever changing and unpredictable. So I'm happy.
You happy, Bill?
I'm happy.
All right, go back to our regular lives. Yeah, it was fun when Dave came over. It's great being able to work together and do a collaboration where he painted on my board and I painted on his, and it was a nice exchange to be able to do that. And it makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. You know, like he has a branch in my board, and I wouldn't have done that, but I like it. So it's really a way of connecting everything together and making it look cohesive and flowing. So yeah, I'm excited. It was fun.
After some minor adjustments, the first 3 pieces are finished and ready for public display.
Is about the flood here, mainly in Bloomsburg, about the turmoil, the things that happened. I have little phrases in the painting about our area, the Bloomsburg area, and how it affected people. I just wanted to show turmoil and displacement, and that was my feeling when I started the project. And usually when I start any painting, it's spontaneous, and I call it spontaneous abstract. So I really don't have a plan when I start a painting. I just put a shape or a color on, and I go from there.
You're gonna pick up that side till I get set up there, then I'm just gonna take the whole thing away from you.
Okay. My project, I believe, is going to be the entertainment part of Bloomsburg. There's a lot of things go on in Bloomsburg that are entertaining. One of them is the Bloomsburg Fair, of which I've thought a lot about, possibly doing my panel of the Bloomsburg Fair. You got it?
Up a little bit more. Yes, there you go.
Okay.
Is it all right?
Yep.
I think as a group, we want to accomplish a beautiful project, a beautiful installation for the Haas Auditorium. I think that's the goal that everybody in the Susquehanna River Artists group has. We all talk about how we want it to be beautiful. The coming together of artists, the brainstorming, the ideas. It's nice to be around other people that have the same interests that you do. Not necessarily working, but maybe just on a friendly basis, hanging out.
I think it's very important that the community as a public and the community as the college exist together. And this way we're working together
we're bringing our ideas of what was important in the past to what's important right now. Hopefully the students will see what's important for the future. This is a wonderful venue for us as artists to get some people to know who we are. And it's wonderful for the students to see, especially the art students, what they can do in the future. The river, the community is very, very important to everyone. And the more they work together, the more they blend together, the better.
The clay piece is on there yet.
Alrighty. I want to make sure I'm missing the one on my right.
Oh, no.
Okay, let's go up more. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, let me see their stuff for a second.
That was one of the things. Richard's usually working in oil, and we worked in acrylics.
Yeah, I did mine.
So his was, for him, a whole different technique too.
My 6 pieces that are under there are all acrylic.
I found it very interesting that although we didn't sit down together as the people who were working to our left and people who were working to our right, there are parts of each one that blend with ours. And not because we called each other and said, I'm using this color or I'm doing this. We had one color that we were all supposed to use a little bit of. Some people used a lot, some people used a little, some people used an average amount, but when you look down the wall, it's coming together so well.
Mine's up. Okay, it does.
Up too far.
Actually, I could have made that little bit. If I had some blue paint, I would add a little more right now, but I don't. Someday I'll come up here when nobody's here. In my panel for the Confluence project, I originally thought about working it around people in the area, their occupations, and thought about that, but I was really drawn to sort of the natural element, of course, of the river and its beauty and its life around it and how it sustains us, as well as all the animals, bird life, fish life around here. So I ended up going back to the thing that I'm most comfortable with and portraying nature. So I decided to use the imagery of the Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash. The corn being the pole that the beans wrap around squash, covering the land beneath the corn to smother weeds, and so those things grow together in harmony. And I thought that was also sort of symbolic of the Confluence project as a whole. All the artists are working together to create this image of a flowing river and all that involves. So,
you know, it was wavy like this, and you could see all the indentations from the 2x6s and 2x4s that were holding the form up there that they poured the cement wall. Nail holes still in it from where they pull the nails out of the forms.
Wow.
That's what it looked like when I came here, and there was nothing on it. So I had them reach into the permanent collection, and I had all these big, huge paintings up here.
Oh.
But they didn't make any sense to be there together. They're by different artists, different styles, whatever.
Yeah.
You know? I just said, give me all the big things you have.
Joan McCarty is to my right, and I tried to follow she is like the one part of the river flowing, and I tried to sort of continue that on into my piece. Originally I thought of having it flow across the panel, and then maybe Bob Brown could pick that up in his, but I just didn't like how it looked on my panel, so I decided to just have it go into a spiral, which is also, I like that symbolism of the spiral and the circles and cycles of life and all that. Bob may end up using either the fish or the bird skeletal structure in his imagery in his panel. So that and using the color blue will have some sort of cohesion in my neighbors and my panel. So hopefully.
Okay, so this is what we're doing. This piece here is the piece that, on my drawing, was the keystone piece. Although my understanding is that the drawing changed a bit, so probably this piece became the keystone piece, because I needed this dimension right here in order to set everything on the final heights and levels. But I needed to make sure that, you know, that wasn't going to change before I did that.
Well, the piece that I created, I named Backbone Blue, in trying to figure out, which incidentally took a lot of time and thought, on what to do. I spent a lot of time outdoors and in nature, so I definitely wanted to incorporate that. A lot of things with nature have a skeletal sequence to them, a backbone, you might say. And I started to think, well, let me see how I can incorporate that into a piece using photographic processes. So I went about creating these digital negatives, these film negatives, that illustrated the skeletons or the backbones of trees and leaves, and especially fish, because when you start to look at them, everything looks very similar. It has a backbone, and then it has, branches, going out, what have you. I went through the process of making these cyanotype photograms, where you put the film negative right in contact with an iron sensitized piece of paper, a cyanotype paper, and then you expose it to UV light from anywhere from 10 minutes to a half an hour. And then take that piece of paper and process it in acidulated water, acid water. I made approximately 80 or so prints, and then I applied them to my board, my medium, which was a plywood board, which I had coated with a stain blocker there since the board wasn't archival, and then started to apply the prints with a diluted white glue a la decoupage. The glue sort of got into the into the paper, so then I started to apply these in a well thought out but extremely random pattern across the board, and just started applying each one down, and then just coating it with the glue, allowing it to dry. And then once it was dry, just put a protective lacquer spray over it.
Okay, so let's lift it up here. Okay. Yeah, I'm not quite tall enough to do it by myself. Go up. I'm going to reposition my hands here real quick. A bit more. There we go. Down. Okay. Actually, it looks like it's in there. Looks like a flame.
What time is the reception on the 11th?
6. It's right in here, because we open up this lobby at 6:30, and I want to have the, the artists here before the lobby's opened up.
2015. Very good.
I joined the Susquehanna River Artists, and they had mentioned that they were trying to develop this project, and I thought it was great, and I love working on large scale. So when I found out it was 60-something feet long, I thought I really need to be a part of that. My work mainly deals with texture and flow, so it kind of fits really good with the Susquehanna, and I kind of envision it like the water swirling and maybe some mysteries underneath the water, a catfish, maybe a story of a crashed wagon or something.
As the deadline in unveiling approaches, the final 4 pieces are prepared for hanging. Hanging the final pieces creates a new set of challenges.
Okay, now, Jeff, you want to step back and guide us left to right?
Well, it's going to be hard until we get the other piece up there.
Right. Well, I need to know that this end is where you want it to be.
Oh, well, keep going, I guess, over left.
To my left?
No, yeah. Okay. Or you want to go that way just a little bit. I don't know where hers is going to line up, so that's going to make the...
Well, we'll line up where we need to.
Okay.
My plan for my section of the piece is to create a tile composition. These are actually some samples that I'm trying to figure out what kind of texture. I'm going to do a fairly literal interpretation of the river. I want it to look watery. I want it to look like it's moving. I'm planning on my theme for my section is going to be recreation. So I'm going to try to incorporate some activities that one might do on the river. I'm a whitewater kayaker. I teach whitewater kayaking in the summers. I plan on having some kayakers on the river, possibly a bicyclist on the edge, something along those lines.
It's gonna be that's close.
I'm working on a section of the Confluence project. Going to be definitely photographic based. I have a basic idea started, but it's got like silhouettes of geese breaking up a scene of the river.
In the beginning, we were sort of overwhelmed by the time we had to complete the project and how extensive the project was going to be. I think we were like, whoa, you know, we got to get going on this and make it happen quickly. But once we started brainstorming and then had the input of the rest of the group, it just seemed like it was going to flow a whole lot easier than what we were anticipating. And I think the whole collaborative nature of it seemed somewhat, I don't know, daunting, but I think ultimately some artists have worked hard at making that their piece more collaborative than others, but I think ultimately it's just turned out really well from the panels that I've seen so far. So I think it's just going to be dynamite when it's done.
After many months of planning and hard work, Confluence is officially revealed and presented to the public. For the first time, the community is invited to see this enormous piece of art in its entirety.
I had no idea. I mean, I got to see one piece being built, and I had a general idea of that one person's. And then during our studio tour that we do with the Susquehanna River artists, I went around to all our artists' studios and I got a glimpse into some of their works, but I never really ever came into Haas and looked at the final piece until it was unveiled. And it just blew me away. So no preconceived notions, just extremely happy with the results, and I know the artists are too.
So, 45 years almost, and all but 4 of those years, this wall was a cement pour for the balcony inside. The balcony inside actually is an architectural feat from the designer and builder of the building. It's cantilevered. No one ever really pays the attention, but there are no supports to the balcony. It's all cantilevered. Holds 500 people, and it was done with a single pour. This wall was the support for that system. So it was lined with lumber and nails and rebar and everything else. So for 18 years, I sat in that office and looked out the door at, poured cement, which drove me crazy. When I came here, it was painted Nassau green, which was even, more crazy driving. So for years, I've had this vision to do something with this wall. By happenstance, Otto and I were having a conversation about something we wanted to do elsewhere in the building, and I mentioned my vision, and Otto said to me, "Oh, I have people that'll do that for you, no problem." And so here we all are. Of course, why is it today? Why did I give you this impossible task to make this happen, turn it around, get it up on the wall, make it a finished product, and have it here today? Well, as I mentioned to you all along, over the next few weeks, a lot of activity takes place in this hall. Between now and the end of June, approximately 45 to 60,000 people will pass through this building. So not only is this piece at 7 feet tall by 62 feet long, one of the largest pieces in the state, one of the largest installations in the region and in the mid-Atlantic states, it'll be viewed by some of the largest numbers of people for any art opening in the region. Well, we have this event going on inside called the Temptation of the Muses. The Muses are all the artists that are involved. So we have a few more of them right here with us today, and a few more muses right here. The temptation that's being talked about in the show is the music and the dancing that the artists relate to with the music. The centerpiece of the music is called The Concrete Stream by one of the country's leading new classical composers, Kinji Bunch. And he says, Naini Chin says of the piece that the centerpiece of the music is the newly commissioned work created for this production by Kinji Bunch titled Concrete Stream. And that the dance takes its theme from a poem by exiled Afghan poet Latif Nazimi, and here's the important part, in which water becomes a symbol of freedom. So the water on stage is carrying through to the water out here. And the comments on the exiled poet about water is, let's kiss water, the root of civilization, a word for freedom. And then it ends with, I had a wonderful dream on Friday night. I dreamed the river ran free, that on its roaring horse it rode over stones, past the border of farms. And I certainly think that's what Confluence says right here. So it's going to be on stage tonight, and we made it visible right here, what they're going to make physical out there. So I thank all of you for your contributions. I know that that with the information that we put out here about you all, that more and more people are getting to know your names. I think that's a great thing. I hope that it just carries through to all the activities that you do. And the last thing that's going to happen with this piece is that poster that we have there is going to be redesigned a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, let's call it, and it will be made into a bronze plaque with all of your names on it that will take the place of all these posters we have over here on this wall, so that anyone that comes in here to look at it will see who had part of it, in perpetuity. So again, thank you. I think it's a great piece. So ultimately, what we have now really celebrates water. And coincidentally, our our closing event where we dedicated this activity was a performance in the auditorium about water. So ultimately, it ended up being ironic and kind of cool that all that worked together. Certainly, we have a history of water here, and whether it's good or bad, but it kind of works for us to say we've embraced it, we know it's there, we work with it, and it's part of who we are, and we come in and we deal with this. I kept talking to the artist about a flow, and maybe that's what helped direct them into the whole water notion. But I wanted the activities to flow from the door into the auditorium, and just have everybody just pour into the door. So I kept using those words, and I guess ultimately, if I wanted to be hard on myself, I would say they backfired a little bit from what I had hoped would happen with performing arts visualizations. But again, I like what we have. I didn't want to direct it, and my goal was to have artists create a vision that I could look at every day. drill! Hammer drill! Can't touch